Information that goes in a X12837 healthcare claim when exchanged electronically. We all know that this plays an important role in the healthcare ecosystem. That's why X12837 transaction set, it's considered the most important set and also the most complicated one. Hence, I'm back here today to continue where I left in my last session. Hi, I'm Manmeet Chadha. Welcome to Health Tech Decoded, where you get answers to all your queries related to healthcare technology. 837 files can be professional, institutional or dental. When submitted by practitioners, they are called as 837P. When submitted by facilities, institutions or hospitals, they are called 837I. And when submitted for dental services, they are called as 837D. As we already did in chapter 1, I am talking about all these file types side by side with each other for more clarity. In the last session, we covered chapter 1 where we talked about the 1000A, 1000B, 2000A, 2000B and 2000C loops. Here today we'll cover chapter 2 where we'll talk about the 2300 loop and all segments under it. Then next session we'll cover chapter 3 where we'll discuss the 2400 loop and all segments under it. The 2300 loop in X12837 files, it comprises of the most important patient treatment information that we will be discussing in detail today. Definitely make sure you watch this session till the end if you want to understand the X12837 transaction set properly. This is the diagram that gives a glimpse of what all loops and segments we'll cover today. Also, while explaining the segments, I will keep showing reference data in the 837 guides also. That will help you understand things much better. This guide that I'll be referencing to, this is the one, and that's from the ST EDI portal. Here in chapter 2 again, some important element values are highlighted in red or green. Wherever required, I will talk in detail about these segment values. Then some segments here are written in gray color. They are the ones which are not part of all the 3 transaction sets 837P, I and D. These gray items, they are available either in 1 or 2 of the 3 transaction sets, but not in all of them. Now starting with the CLM segment, claim information segment. CLM01, it carries the patient control number, which is used for tracking this claim starting from when this claim was created till the time payment of this claim is done. So this CLM01 item is used for recognizing this claim throughout. CLM02, it has the claim total charge. CLM05 has multiple elements which are important ones. The first element here in CLM05, it carries the code for the place of service. Here on my screen, you see all the possible codes for the place of service. This is from cms.gov website that you are seeing at the moment. The second element of CLM05 is the code identifying the reference facility in the claim. For 837P and D, this code is always B. For 837I, it is A. Here, let's see this in the respective guides also. So here you see the code for 837P, for 837D, and this code is for 837I. Then coming back to the third CLM05 element, so it represents the frequency of the claim, where 1 stands for original, 7 in CLM0503, it stands for replacing a prior claim. If CLM0503 is equal to 8, then it identifies cancellation or nullification of a prior submitted claim. Then if this value is 5, it stands for late charge claim. 5 is more common in institutional claims because hospitals often send late charges separately and they use 5 in the CLM0503 position. So whenever CLM0503 is used for corrected claims or cancellation of a claim, the original claim number that is being corrected or cancelled, that claim number is referenced in the Ref F8 segment. Then some of the important claim specific dates are also part of this loop. These segments have the date time qualifier code in DTP01. Format qualifier code is in DTP02. The format qualifier code can be D8 or R. The actual date value goes in DTP03. For example, the accident date is always identified by DTP01 equal to 439. So wherever you see a DTP star 439, you should understand that they're talking about accident date. This accident date, it's part of the 837P and the D transaction sets. And accident date, it uses the format D8. Then the statement dates use the format RD8. And the statement dates is usually for 837 institutional claims or UB claims also we call them. Statement dates have DTP01 equal to 434, and for statement dates we always use the format as RD8. RD8 stands for a range, this date to this date. That's why RD8 is used in statement dates. Then the appliance placement date, it's only used for dental claims. DTP01 in the qualifier is 452. Then admission dates, DTP01 is 435 and it's only for professional and institutional claims. Then the initial treatment date, it's required in professional claims because the earlier treatment date should be known for a follow-up visit, right? So whenever we are going for a follow-up visit, so the earlier treatment date should be known. So example, if it's a physiotherapy, the claim will require the date of the initial treatment that was done, like any surgery was done, etc. Or for the therapy sessions, also the initial date or the last treatment date is required to be referred to. Then the discharge date, DTP01 is 096 and it's used for 837P and 837I. Then the repricer received date, in that the DTP01 value is 50. This is required when a repricer is passing the claim on to the payer. So the claim was repriced at the repricing agency and then the repricing details are passed back to the payer. At that time, the repricer has to mention that what was the date when the claim was received. So that is identified by DTP01 equal to 50. And I will go in the details of the claim pricing information segments here in this chapter only. The details are part of another segment which we'll talk about in some time. Then the service date, which is part of the 837D. This is a date that takes care of some dental services or some series of services also. Like some dental services were done from this date till this date. So that is why service date will have a format DA or it can also have a format RDA. Then the institutional claim code segment. This is required only for 837 institutional or for UBs because this segment provides information about the type of admission, source of admission to the hospital and also the patient's status during discharge. That's why we say that this segment is only part of the 837 institutional file, which is also called as the UB claims file. Now, CL 101 has the admission type code. Like, what kind of admission type was it? Was it an emergency admission or a newborn, urgent admission type? So, whatever is that type, it goes in CL 101. CL 102 is the source code. Like, how did the patient end up getting admitted? What was the source of admission? Like by some doctor referral or after ER, the patient ended up into admission, or by any clinic referral, or was this patient transferred from some other facility, etc. So just for your reference, the codes for admission, admission source, and the discharge patient status, they all are shown here. And if admission type is 4, then the admission source options for newborn are different as compared to other patient types as you see here. So this is just for a glance. You can check this out. Then coming to DN1 and DN2 segments, which are only for 837 dental files. DN1 or orthodontic treatment months duration provides the total months or the remaining months and the treatment indicator for orthodontic treatment claims. DN2, it provides the tooth status, where DN201 is for identifying the tooth number and DN202 is for the tooth status code. DN206, it carries the code set used for tooth identification. So JP is used for the Universal National Tooth Designation System. Then the PWK segment, it's for supplemental information. So this is used when payers they're required to send any kind of additional information for supporting the claim. So for example, physician's order or the diagnostic reports, discharge summary, lab results, or even dental models details or periodontal charts, etc. So the PWK01 has the code that indicates the content of the attachment. So here, these are the codes for 837P, these for 837I, and these are for 837D. So PWK02 qualifier and PWK06 has the actual attachment control ID. Now, patient responsibility or the patient amount paid, it's represented by qualifier F3 or F5. 837I claims, they use qualifier F3, which indicates the patient responsibility for this claim. For 837P and 837D, because they're outpatient claims, F5 indicates the total amount that the patient already paid towards this treatment. Then a few ref variants with important qualifiers. We'll talk about them now. First, we'll talk about the ref segment with the D9 qualifier. It stands for claim identifier. This ref is supplied for transmission for the sender's own unique claim number. The 837 recipients are not required to send this number in any HIPAA transaction. It's only the senders that are required to share this information. They can or they cannot. Now, the ref G1, it's for prior authorization. So, this ref with the G1 qualifier, it carries the pre-authorization number that was earlier provided by the payer as part of the 278 response. So, this pre-auth number here, it helps with the claim payment. Then ref with F8 qualifier, ref F8, it's the payer claim control number or also called as the original reference number. This is usually used when the CLM 0503 indicates a replacement or void to a previously submitted claim. So we just did talk about that where we were talking about CLM 0503. If it's for cancellation or if it's for any replacement, at that time, the original claim number, how is it shared? So this is shared in the ref F8 segment. Then the ref 9A, it's for the repriced claim number. So whenever a claim is repriced by any repricer, then that repricing company will return the ref 9A populated with the repriced claim number. So that unique claim number is sent from the repricer back to the payer. Then ref 9C, it stands for adjusted repriced claim number. Again, this information is completed by the repricers only. So ref D9 is the claim number relevant to the submitting entity. In this case, the payer. Ref F8, it's used by the payers to link this claim to an earlier payer submission. Ref 9A, every time the repricer processes the claim, it assigns a new unique number there. 9C, to show this is an adjusted result. For example, during the first submission from the payer to repricer, the ref D9, it carried a value like 1234. Then the repricer returned this claim back to the payer after repricing with an ID in ref 9A like 6789, okay? Now, due to some dispute with the provider, the payer wants this claim pricing adjusted. Then in that case, the payer sends this claim to the repricer again. Ref D9 in the second instance of the claim will have a new number, which is something like 2214. Because this claim is a repetition going back to the repricer, the payer will send ref F8 equal to 1234 because 1234 was the original claim ID when it was sent to repricer for the first time. So ref F8 will have 1234. Now the repricer sends back the repriced results with ref 9A again. This time the repricer will send as 1111 and ref 9C will have the old repricing number which is 6789. So I hope with this kind of an example, you understand better that how these ref variants can be utilized. Now, in case some extra file information is required to be exchanged, it's done via the K3 segment. So in a layman language, this segment is utilized for exchanging fixed format data for which the guide does not have any appropriate segment. Like if data has to be exchanged and there's no segment, then K3 segment is usually agreed upon by the sender and the receiver. Then there's one segment that we have here that's for exchanging notes. This is the NTE segment. In TEO1, it identifies the purpose for the note. These are few codes used for specifying the purpose of notes. And NTEO2 is the actual note content in free-form text. Now, one of the most important information of 837X12 files in 2300 loop, that is the healthcare diagnosis information. The diagnosis can be of different types like principal diagnosis, admitting diagnosis, other diagnosis, as you see in the guide here. Let's observe the 837I example here. A patient is admitted due to severe cough and breathlessness. So in that case, admission diagnosis will carry the codes for cough, shortness of breath, fever, because admission was done due to this problem. Now, HIABJ carries that code. RO5 here represents code for severe cough. So that's why you see it in HIABJ. Tests will reveal that primary diagnosis came out to be pneumonia for this patient. So then in that case, qualifier ABK or BK will represent the principal diagnosis code. In this case, it is J18.9 for pneumonia. So that will be populated as that is the main condition treated during the stay. But the patient also has, for example, diabetes and hypertension as comorbidities. As a result, the other diagnosis for additional conditions will be added to the claim. So this is represented by ABF, HI star ABF. So like diabetes is E11.9, that's the code, and hypertension is with I10, so that's the code. So that will be added into the item for other diagnosis. Then based on all diagnosis information available for inpatient claims, the final code is derived. And that final code is the DRG code, called as Diagnosis Related Group Code. It is either derived by the provider or even by the payer during the process of claim adjudication, and it helps during claim repricing for UB, or also called as the 837 institutional claims. So in this case, the possible derived code for this patient in the example is 195. You notice that here for 837P and 837D, we only utilize principal diagnosis and other diagnosis codes. We don't utilize anything else. Now for the institutional claims, the principal procedure or other procedures performed during inpatient stay are also mentioned in 837 institutional files. In this example that you see here, the severe pneumonia patient was put on a 24-hour ventilator, for example. In that case, the principal procedure code 5A19450, it stands for 24-hour ventilation. That was done on 2025. 0615. You see the segment is populated like the HI, BBR, and then the principal procedure code for 24-hour ventilation, and then D8 is for date, and then what date was this principal procedure. Then similarly, other procedures like some anti-infective infusion was performed, and the code for that is this one that you see here, 3E3329. So I've just taken this code for the purpose of an example. And then this other procedure was done on 2025-0615. Again, how will it be shown in the EDI file? Like this: HIBBQ, then the code, D8, and then the date. If you're finding this explanation useful till now, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so that you do not miss out on important healthcare technical content. Now, let's get back to the remaining contents of this chapter, which include claim repricing information, some important segments of 2310, 2320 and 2330 loops. Now the claim repricing information in 2300 loop. Before that, if you want to understand what claim repricing means, you can check that out in my another session. I've mentioned the details here. Now, claim repricing results, they are returned by repricers to the payers via the HCP segments. So HCP01, it carries the method that is used while repricing a claim. HCP02 is the allowed amount for the provider, which is derived after claim repricing. HCP03 always carries the savings that is made for the payer on this claim. In cases where the repricer is unable to reprice a claim for the payer, the HCP segment is returned like this or like this. So some repricing companies, they return allowed amount equal to billed charge, as I've shown here in the 837P example. Or some repricing companies also return allowed and savings as 0, as I've shown in the 837I and the 837D example, because no repricing has happened. And in such cases where no repricing happens, HCP 13 carries the rejection reason code. Then the provider and facilities that are associated with the treatment provided as part of this claim, now we'll talk about those. The various providers involved may include referring provider, which can be either a primary care physician or any other provider also. Identifier code P3, it's used for primary care physician, and DN for any other referring physician. Then NM102 here will carry a 1 because a provider will always be a person. Then just like we had for the billing provider in the 2000A loop, here also in NM108, we have XX, which identifies NPI. So the NPI ID will go in NM109. Then the attending and the operating provider details. Here you see they are part of UB claims, which are also called as 837 institutional claim files. The identifier code 71 is used for attending physician. It's in NM101. And NM102, again, here it will be 1 only because it's a person. NM103 till NM107, we have the name information. Then NM108, XX again. NM109 will carry the ID of NPI value. For the operating physician, identifier code used is 72 in NM101. XX again, as we already know, in NM108 is for identifying the NPI value, which goes in NM109. Then again, a very important provider information is the rendering provider information. So rendering provider is the healthcare professional who delivers or completes a particular medical service or non-surgical procedure. So the rendering provider segment is used when he is a different person from the attending or the operating physician. The identifier code used for rendering provider in NM101 is 82. So wherever you see 82, you have to understand it's a rendering provider information. XX in NM108 and NPI value for that NPI identifier XX goes in NM109. Then the service facility is the place where service is rendered. So the identifier code for service facility is always 77. That goes in NM101. NM102 is equal to 2 in this case because obviously service facility is not a person. It's a non-person entity. It's a facility. So that is why NM102 will be equal to 2 whenever we are talking about a service facility. NM108 again will be XX because NPI can be there for a person or a non-person. NPI value will go in NM109. N3 will have the address and N4 will have the city and zip for the service facility. Now, for sharing the secondary identification of facilities or physicians, we use ref segments with any of these ID qualifiers. So like 0B, 1G, G2, LU that you see here. The code OB stands for state license number. 1G stands for provider UPIN. G2, for example, it stands for the provider commercial number. L2 for the location number. All these ID qualifiers, they have the actual values in Ref O2 segment. Now, if there's another insurance company involved, we'll have another subscriber information part of this file. So the NM1 segment again will have the identifier IL. As we already know that for subscriber, the NM101 IL stands for the subscriber's information or the insured's details. So the name and ID will go there. N3 and N4 for address and city or state respectively. Then, if there's any kind of claimable adjustment from the prior or the main payer that had done the payment earlier, if there's any kind of an adjustment to the amount paid, that is part of the CAS segment, CAS segment. So the CAS segment is sent by the submitter for the other payer identified in this loop. There's a reason of adjustment also that's mentioned in CAS. The adjustment reason can be any of these values that you see here. This I'm showing from the x12.org page. We can use CAS PI 51 or CAS PR 31, or we can also use CAS OA 26. Now, just like the first pair we discussed in chapter 1, the other pairs information goes in NM101 with the PR qualifier. And the ID goes in NM109. And N3, N4, as we already know, that's for address or the city, state, respectively. Then let's also talk about the coordination of benefits. The COB segment, it's used when a patient has more than one insurance plan. For example, a patient has Medicare plus a commercial insurance. The coordination of benefits segment tells the secondary payer or the tertiary payer what the primary payer had already paid as allowed, so that the secondary or the tertiary payer does not overpay. Now here are the three 837 files side by side to each other for comparison of the segments that we learned in this chapter. So towards the extreme left, we have the 837P demo file. In the middle, it's the 837I demo file. And extreme right is the 837D. So here in the extreme left 837P file, let's talk about that first. Here in this file, we see that the CLM segment, it has CLM 0501 as 11, which stands for in office. That's the place of service. And then CLM 0502 is B. As we already learned, CLM 0502, it's B for 837P and 837D file types. And CLM 0503, which is the frequency of the claim, it's 1, which indicates that it's an original claim. Then you see the DTP 454, it's for initial treatment date in 837P. The claim ID is referenced to in Ref D9. Then you also see Ref 9A. That's because this claim has repricing information being returned to the payer. Ref 9A is always used when a repricing information is returned. Then the K3 segment also is here in this 837P file. This K3 star and then this amount value, it's kind of indicating some amounts. For example, it's carrying the usual and customary or the reasonable and customary charges for this claim. The client is exchanging in the K3 segment. So the K3 segment, as we know, can be used for any item that is not covered by the guide. Both parties can come to an agreement for utilizing the K3 segment that they want their way. Then the note segment is also here. HI segment with BK and BF qualifier you see here. It's for principal and other diagnoses respectively. Then the HCP segment, it's carrying the pricing information back to the payer from the repricer. Then you also see the rendering provider details here. Then in the 837I, file in the middle, we see the CLM 0501, it has a 14, which is the place of service. In this case, 14 is for residence stay, like it's an inpatient claim. Then CLM 0502 has the facility code qualifier, which is always A for UB claims or 837I claims. Frequency here is 5. So that indicates it's a late charges claim. For UB, we do see late charges, which is represented by CLM 0503 equal to 5. Then the admission date, you see here, statement, range of dates, we see here. So then the very important CL1 segment for institutional claim codes, it has the admission type 1, which is for emergency, admission source 7, again for the emergency room, and it has 01 for the patient status code at discharge, which stands for a routine discharge. So for this patient, it was a routine discharge that had happened. Then the claim ID is in Ref D9, prior authorization number is in Ref G1 segment. Then the principal diagnosis, admission diagnosis, DRG code, other diagnosis, principal procedure code is here, other procedure code is here. So just like for the pneumonia example we already discussed earlier in this session, so all these diagnosis codes are mentioned here for your reference. Then the attending physician name is in NM101. It's with identifier 71. NM102 has a value 1, which stands for person, as we already learned. Then the Ref 1G, it has the attending physician's UPEN number. So whenever it's a secondary identifier for a provider, we know we can use any of these qualifiers. So here we are using 1G for the UPEN number. Here in this file, it also carries a secondary subscriber detail. So that will help you understand how secondary subscriber or secondary insurance company's information is utilized. So a second SBR segment is here, NM1 segment with IL identifier is here. Then the payer information, a secondary payer information in the NM1 PR segment you see here. Then also the coordination of benefits segment is here with the AMT D. Then for the dental, on the extreme right, this example, it shows the CLM 05 segment. Same CLM 05 segment for dental is very similar to the 837P example in the extreme left. Here it shows the date of service that took place recently. So for dental claims, as we know, the date of service here is represented by DTP 472. Then the DN1 segment is for orthodontic treatment details. So here it's indicating the month and the duration. DN2 segment here, it shows that which tooth is supposed to be extracted as part of this treatment. Because many times for orthodontics, there is a requirement of even tooth extraction so that the spacing can be done better. So it's indicated here. Then the PWK segment, it specifies the dental model is available. So PWK segment, if you remember, it was for sending supplemental information with the claim. So here they are indicating that the dental model is available on the provider site. So as you see the PWK segment DA, it states dental model, and AA, it states that it's available at the provider site. Claim ID here, it's in the Ref D9 segment, and the rendering provider information NM182 segment, it's already part of the 837D file. I hope you got clarity with all segments we discussed today as part of Loop 2300 and all child loops beneath it. If you did, don't forget to like the video. I will soon return with details on Loop 2400 and its segments. So do subscribe to the channel to stay tuned on all latest upcoming videos because they are really worth watching.